There is a kind of pain that leaves no scars, no broken bones, no blood, no visible wounds. Yet it destroys men every single day. It is the pain of suffering in silence, the pain of carrying responsibilities nobody sees, the pain of smiling while your mind is falling apart, the pain of being surrounded by people and still feeling completely alone. Modern men have become masters of hiding their struggles. They wake up, go to work, pay bills, handle responsibilities, take care of everyone else, and then they go to sleep carrying burdens they never speak about, because somewhere along the way, society taught men a dangerous lesson. Stay quiet. Handle it yourself. Don't complain. Nobody cares. And eventually, many men begin believing that their suffering must remain hidden. So, they carry it, year after year, burden after burden, until one day they no longer recognize themselves. What makes this tragedy even worse is that this problem is not new. More than 2,000 years ago, the Stoics saw the same struggle. They saw men crushed under anxiety, destroyed by fear, consumed by loneliness, and they developed a solution that has been forgotten by the modern world: the invisible battle. Imagine a young man standing in a crowded city. Thousands of people surround him. Cars move, lights shine, everyone appears busy, everyone appears connected. Yet inside him, there is emptiness. He feels pressure to succeed, pressure to earn more money, pressure to become stronger, pressure to achieve something meaningful, pressure to prove himself. Every day, he compares himself to men who appear more successful, more attractive, more confident, more accomplished, and little by little, he begins losing respect for himself. The ancient Stoics understood this problem long before social media existed. They knew comparison was poison. They knew that the moment a man starts measuring his worth against others, he becomes a prisoner. The Roman philosopher Seneca once warned that a man who constantly looks at others will never find peace within himself, because there will always be someone richer, someone stronger, someone more successful, someone ahead of you. The race never ends. And if your happiness depends on winning that race, you will suffer forever. That is exactly what many men are experiencing today, not because they are weak, but because they have been trapped inside a game that cannot be won. The story of the Roman general. There is an ancient story often told among Roman thinkers. A victorious general returned to Rome after winning a great battle. The crowds celebrated him. People cheered his name, flowers filled the streets. His achievements were admired by thousands. But as he rode through the city, a servant stood behind him whispering the same sentence over and over. Remember, you are mortal. Again, and again, and again. Remember, you are mortal. Why? Because the Romans understood something modern men often forget. External success can never save an internal struggle. You can have status, money, recognition, respect, and still suffer. You can have everything the world tells you to chase and still feel empty. That is why so many successful men secretly battle depression, anxiety, loneliness, and exhaustion. They reached the destination they thought would make them happy, only to discover happiness was never waiting there. The problem wasn't outside. The problem was inside, and no amount of achievement can fix what remains unresolved within. The mask men where many men today wear masks, not physical masks, psychological masks, the mask of confidence, the mask of strength, the mask of success, the mask of control. Behind that mask often exists fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of being judged, fear of not being enough. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus was born a slave. He knew suffering better than most people. He understood what it meant to feel powerless, yet he taught something extraordinary. He said, "It is not events that disturb us, but our opinions about them." Think about that. The suffering many men experience is not always caused by reality. It is caused by the stories they tell themselves. I am behind. I am not successful enough. I am not respected enough. Could already have everything figured out. These thoughts become chains, and eventually the mind becomes its own prison. The tragedy is that most men never question these thoughts. They simply accept them as truth and suffer because of them. The weight of unexpressed pain. A burden becomes heavier the longer you carry it. Imagine carrying a stone. At first, it feels manageable. Then hours pass, days pass, weeks pass, months pass. Eventually, the weight becomes unbearable. Yet many men do exactly this with emotional pain. They carry disappointments, failures, regrets, humiliations, heartbreaks, betrayals, and instead of confronting them, they bury them. But buried pain does not disappear. It grows. It waits. It influences your decisions, your confidence, your relationships, your future. Seneca wrote that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. How many nights have men spent awake fighting battles that never happened? How many opportunities have been missed because of fear? How many dreams have died because someone convinced himself he wasn't capable? The enemy was never outside. The enemy was the uncontrolled mind. The modern world offers endless distractions, infinite entertainment, infinite scrolling, infinite noise, but very little wisdom. Men have access to more information than any generation in history, yet many have never felt more confused. Why? Because information is not wisdom, knowledge is not understanding, and distraction is not peace. The Stoics believed that every man must spend time alone with his own thoughts, not escaping them, not numbing them, facing them. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire. Millions depended on his decisions. Enemies threatened Rome. Wars surrounded him. Yet despite all of that, he spent time every day writing in a private journal. Those writings eventually became one of the greatest philosophical works ever created. He wasn't writing for fame. He wasn't writing for recognition. He was writing to understand himself, because he knew something many modern men have forgotten. A man who cannot sit alone with his thoughts will eventually become controlled by them. The real crisis facing men today is not lack of opportunity. It is lack of inner mastery. Many men can control machines, businesses, technology, investments, but they cannot control anger, fear, impulses, negative thinking, self-doubt, and that is why they suffer. Marcus Aurelius once observed that a man's life becomes what his thoughts make it. Think about that. Your thoughts shape your actions. Your actions shape your habits. Your habits shape your character. And your character shapes your destiny. If your mind is weak, everything becomes difficult. If your mind is disciplined, everything becomes possible. The Stoics never promised an easy life. They never promised comfort. They never promised happiness every day. What they promised was something much greater. Freedom. Freedom from fear. Freedom from anxiety. Freedom from the opinions of others. Freedom from emotional slavery. The Stoic solution begins with one simple realization. You cannot control everything. You cannot control what people think. You cannot control the past. You cannot control the economy. You cannot control luck. You cannot control circumstances. But you can control your response. And that changes everything. Because the moment a man stops fighting what he cannot control, he gains power over what he can. That is where transformation begins, not in the world outside, but within. Modern men are suffering in silence, not because they lack strength, but because they have been taught to search for solutions in all the wrong places. More money, more status, more validation, more distractions. Yet none of these solve the real problem. The Stoics discovered a deeper answer, an answer forged through slavery, war, exile, loss, and hardship. In the next part, we will enter the lives of Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius. We will uncover the brutal lessons that transformed ordinary suffering into extraordinary strength. Because the greatest Stoic secret is this: the obstacle is not standing in your way. The obstacle is the way. Imagine being the most powerful man on earth. Armies obey your commands, nations fear your decisions, millions know your name. Yet every night you lie awake, fighting battles no one can see. This was the reality of Marcus Aurelius. History remembers him as an emperor. But before he was an emperor, he was a man burdened by responsibility, a man surrounded by death, a man facing endless wars, a man betrayed by people he trusted, a man who lost children, a man who constantly battled anxiety, grief, and uncertainty. Most people imagine power removes suffering. Marcus Aurelius discovered the opposite. Power magnifies it, because the higher you climb, the more responsibility you carry. The more people depend on you, the more pressure you endure. Yet despite carrying the weight of an empire, Marcus left behind a message that still speaks to modern men. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Not some power, not partial power, complete power over how you respond." And that realization became one of the greatest weapons ever discovered against suffering. Why men break. Most men do not break because life is difficult. Life has always been difficult. The farmer struggled, the soldier struggled, the merchant struggled, the king struggled. Difficulty is not new. What breaks men is resistance, resistance to reality. A man loses his job. Instead of asking, "What can I do next?" he asks, "Why is this happening to me?" A relationship ends. Instead of accepting reality, he fights reality. A setback occurs. Instead of adapting, he becomes trapped in resentment. The Stoics observed that suffering grows when we demand reality be different from what it is. Imagine standing in the middle of a storm. You cannot stop the rain. You cannot command the wind. You cannot control the clouds. Yet many people spend their lives doing exactly that psychologically. They fight circumstances they cannot change, and every battle against reality drains their strength. The Stoics taught something revolutionary: accept reality first, then act. Never reverse the order. The lesson of Epictetus. Among all Stoic philosophers, perhaps none experienced more hardship than Epictetus. He was born into slavery. He had no freedom, no wealth, no status, no influence. Everything modern society tells us we need for happiness was absent from his life. According to historical accounts, his master treated him cruelly. One story says his leg was being twisted violently. As the pain intensified, Epictetus calmly warned his master. "You will break it." The master continued. Eventually the bone snapped, and Epictetus simply replied, "Did I not tell you it would break?" Think about the level of control required for such a response. Most people cannot remain calm when traffic is slow. Most people cannot remain calm when someone criticizes them online. Yet this man remained composed while experiencing physical suffering. How? Because he understood a truth few people understand today. Your circumstances do not determine your character. Your response does. Epictetus built his philosophy around a simple question. What is within your control, and what is outside your control? Within your control, your choices, your actions, your effort, your mindset, your discipline. Outside your control, the opinions of others, the past, the future, the economy, luck, aging, death. When men suffer, they are often investing emotional energy in things they cannot control. They obsess over people's opinions. They relive mistakes from years ago. They fear outcomes that have not happened. They waste precious life fighting unwinnable battles. The Stoics called this slavery. Because if your peace depends on things outside your control, your peace can always be taken away. True freedom begins when your stability comes from within. Now consider the life of Seneca. He was wealthy, influential, respected, yet he understood fear better than most people. because he lived under emperors who could destroy his life at any moment. One wrong accusation, one political mistake, one enemy whispering into the emperor's ear, and everything could disappear. Eventually, that is exactly what happened. Seneca was ordered to take his own life by Emperor Nero. Imagine receiving such a command. Most people would panic, most would collapse under terror. Yet historical accounts describe Seneca facing death with remarkable calm, not because he wanted to die, not because he lacked fear, but because he had spent years preparing his mind. For decades, he practiced accepting uncertainty. For decades, he trained himself to lose attachment to things he could not keep forever. He understood something modern men desperately need to hear. Fear grows in darkness. Preparation destroys fear. Seneca observed something fascinating. Human beings often suffer more from anticipation than reality. A man fears losing money. A man fears embarrassment. A man fears rejection. A man fears failure. A man fears judgment. And because of those fears, he never acts. He never starts the business. He never approaches the opportunity. He never changes his life. He remains trapped, not by reality, but by imagination. The prison exists entirely inside his mind. How many dreams have died this way? How many men have spent years preparing instead of acting? How many opportunities disappeared because fear convinced them to wait? Seneca warned that we often suffer more in our imagination than in reality, and history keeps proving him right. The Stoics often used simple examples to explain profound truths. Imagine an archer. The archer trains daily. He practices, he studies, he strengthens his technique. Then one day, he draws his bow, aims carefully, and releases the arrow. At that moment, what remains under his control? Nothing. The wind may change, the target may move, unexpected circumstances may appear. The result is no longer his responsibility. Only the effort was. Modern men often reverse this principle. They obsess over outcomes instead of focusing on effort. They want guarantees before they begin. They want certainty before they act. But life never offers certainty. The Stoic archer teaches us that your responsibility ends with your best effort. The result belongs to fate. There is another lesson the Stoics understood. Silence can build strength, but it can also become a prison. Many men today suffer alone because they believe strength means isolation. They believe asking for guidance is weakness. They believe sharing struggles is failure. The Stoics never taught that. In fact, many Stoic writings were conversations, letters, discussions, mentorships. Seneca wrote letters seeking wisdom. Marcus Aurelius recorded thoughts to challenge himself. Epictetus taught students openly. Stoicism was never about becoming emotionally numb. It was about becoming emotionally disciplined. There is a difference. A numb man feels nothing. A Stoic man feels everything. Fear, pain, grief, disappointment, anger. But he refuses to become controlled by them. That distinction changes everything. The moment men reclaim their power. The turning point comes when a man stops asking, "Why is life unfair?" and starts asking, "What is this teaching me?" The first question creates victims. The second creates growth. Every hardship contains a lesson. Every obstacle contains training. Every setback contains information. This does not mean suffering is enjoyable. It means suffering can be useful. The Stoics viewed life as a training ground, not a comfort zone, not an entertainment center, a training ground. And every challenge was an opportunity to strengthen character. The same way resistance builds muscle, adversity builds resilience. The greatest discovery of the Stoics was not how to avoid suffering. It was how to use suffering. Most people spend their lives trying to escape discomfort. The Stoics learned to transform it. They understood that pain can become wisdom, failure can become experience, loss can become gratitude, struggle can become strength, and loneliness can become self-mastery. The obstacle was never the enemy, the obstacle was the teacher. By now, one thing should be clear. The ancient Stoics were not philosophers hiding from reality. They were warriors of the mind, men who faced slavery, exile, war, political betrayal, loss, death, and emerged stronger because of it. But understanding Stoicism is only the beginning. The real question is this: how does a modern man apply these principles in everyday life? How do you transform anxiety into confidence? How do you convert loneliness into strength? How do you stop suffering in silence and begin building an unshakable mind? There comes a moment in every man's life when he realizes something painful. Nobody is coming to rescue him. Not because people do not care, not because the world is cruel, but because some battles can only be fought by the man himself. The day you understand, this is the day you stop waiting. You stop waiting for motivation. You stop waiting for perfect circumstances. You stop waiting for confidence. You stop waiting for permission, and you begin taking responsibility. This is where the Stoic journey truly begins, not with philosophy, not with quotes, not with books, but with responsibility. The ancient Stoics understood that a man becomes powerful the moment he accepts ownership of his life. As long as someone else is responsible for your problems, you remain powerless. But the moment you take responsibility, you regain control. That is why the Stoics never asked, "Who is to blame?" They asked, "What can I do now?" Every action begins with a thought. Every habit begins with a thought. Every success begins with a thought. And every downfall begins with a thought. The mind is the battlefield where victories and defeats occur long before they become visible. Most men lose battles in their minds before life even begins testing them. They tell themselves, "I'm not good enough. I'm too late. I'm too old. I'm not talented. I'm unlucky." These thoughts slowly become beliefs, and beliefs become reality. Marcus Aurelius understood this danger. Every day he reminded himself to guard his thoughts, because he knew a poisoned mind creates a poisoned life. Imagine planting seeds. If you plant weeds, weeds will grow. If you plant fruit, fruit will grow. Your mind works the same way. Feed it fear and doubt. You will harvest weakness. Feed it discipline and purpose. You will harvest strength. The Stoics taught that you must become the gatekeeper of your own mind. Not every thought deserves your attention. Not every fear deserves your belief. Not every emotion deserves your obedience. Modern culture teaches men to seek comfort. The Stoics taught the opposite. They believed comfort, when overused, weakens character. Think about a sword. A sword becomes strong because it passes through fire. Without fire, it remains weak metal. Men are no different. Character is forged through resistance, through hardship, through challenge, through discomfort. That is why many Stoics intentionally practiced discomfort. Seneca occasionally slept on hard surfaces. He wore simple clothing. He ate plain food. Not because he was poor, but because he wanted to prove something to himself. He wanted to know that comfort did not control him. Ask yourself honestly, what controls you? Comfort, convenience, pleasure, distraction? The man who needs perfect conditions becomes weak. The man who can perform under imperfect conditions becomes dangerous, because life is never perfect. The weather will not always cooperate. People will disappoint you. Plans will fail. Obstacles will appear. And when they do, your strength will be tested. There is a story often shared among wise teachers. A farmer plants a bamboo seed. 1 year passes. Nothing happens. 2 years pass. Nothing happens. 3 years pass. Still nothing. 4 years pass. No visible growth. Most people would quit. Most people would assume failure. But then, during the 5th year, something remarkable happens. The bamboo suddenly grows dozens of feet in a short period of time. Did it grow only in the 5th year? No. It was growing underground the entire time, developing roots, building strength, preparing for height. Many men are living in their bamboo years, working silently, improving quietly, growing invisibly. And because results have not appeared yet, they doubt themselves. The Stoics would tell you this: continue building roots. Your season is coming. One of the greatest causes of modern suffering is the desire for approval. Men want recognition, respect, attention, praise, validation. And when it does not arrive, they feel worthless. The Stoics viewed this as a dangerous trap, because the opinions of others are unstable. Today they praise you. Tomorrow they criticize you. Today they support you. Tomorrow they abandon you. If your self-worth depends on their approval, your peace becomes fragile. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself constantly, you cannot control what others think. You can only control what you become. Think about how much energy is wasted trying to impress people who may not even remember your name in 10 years. The Stoic man focuses on character instead, because character remains when applause disappears. Most people see obstacles as enemies. Stoics saw them as teachers. A setback becomes a lesson. A failure becomes experience. A rejection becomes feedback. A loss becomes wisdom. Imagine two men facing the same problem. The first man complains, the second man learns. 5 years later, their lives look completely different. The obstacle itself was not the deciding factor. Their response was, this is what separated great men throughout history. Not intelligence, not talent, not luck. Response. Every challenge asks the same question. Will this break you or build you? The answer is always determined by your mindset. Picture a blacksmith forging a sword. He places metal into intense fire, then strikes it repeatedly with a hammer again and again and again. From the outside, it looks violent, but the blacksmith is not destroying the metal, he is strengthening it. Life often feels the same way. You experience loss, disappointment, failure, rejection, pain, and it feels like life is attacking you. But what if life is forging you? What if the difficulties you hate today are creating the strength you will need tomorrow? This is exactly how the Stoics viewed hardship, not as punishment but as preparation. Many men are searching for peace in the wrong places. They think peace comes after success, after wealth, after recognition, after achievement. The Stoics disagreed. They believed peace begins before those things. Inner peace comes from alignment. When your actions match your values, when your words match your character, when your habits match your goals, that creates stability. And stability creates confidence. Notice something important. The strongest men are rarely the loudest. The strongest men are often calm. They do not need to prove themselves constantly. They do not seek attention. They are focused, grounded, disciplined, certain. Because true strength is quiet. Weakness is often loud. A young student once asked a wise teacher, "How do I become stronger?" The teacher pointed toward a mountain and said, "Climb it." The student returned exhausted. The next day he asked again. The teacher gave the same answer. "Climb it." Weeks passed. Months passed. The student continued climbing. Finally, he returned and asked, "Why did you keep sending me back to the mountain?" The teacher smiled. "Because the mountain was never the lesson. You were. Life works the same way. The obstacle is rarely the lesson. Your response is, your discipline is, your perseverance is, your growth is." At first, Stoicism sounds simple. Control your thoughts, accept reality, embrace hardship, focus on character. But these principles create extraordinary results when practiced consistently. The anxious man becomes calm, the weak man becomes resilient, the confused man becomes focused, the fearful man becomes courageous. Not overnight, but gradually. One decision at a time, one habit at a time, one challenge at a time. This is how transformation occurs, not through motivation, but through discipline, not through inspiration, but through repetition. By now, you understand the Stoic system. You understand how suffering becomes strength, how obstacles become opportunities, how silence can become self-mastery. But there is one final piece, the most important piece, because many men spend years becoming stronger, yet never unlock their true potential. The greatest tragedy is not failure, it is not rejection, it is not loss. The greatest tragedy is reaching the end of your life and realizing you never became the man you were capable of becoming. Imagine an old man sitting alone. His hair has turned grey. His body has become weaker. The years have passed. And as he looks back on his life, he sees something painful. Not the mistakes he made, not the opportunities he lost, but the potential he never used, the strength he never developed, the courage he never showed, the dreams he abandoned, the man he could have become. That realization is heavier than failure, because failure teaches, failure strengthens, failure develops wisdom, but unrealized potential leaves only regret. And regret is a burden no Stoic ever wanted to carry. Throughout his life, Marcus Aurelius repeatedly reminded himself of a simple truth. Life is short, far shorter than most people realize. Every sunrise is one less sunrise. Every year is one less year. Every opportunity is one less opportunity. This was not meant to create fear. It was meant to create urgency. The Stoics practiced remembering mortality because it forced them to focus on what truly mattered. When you remember that life is temporary, many things suddenly become insignificant. Petty arguments, jealousy, comparison, validation, resentment, they lose their power because you begin to understand that time is your most valuable possession, and every minute wasted can never be recovered. Today, many men are not destroyed by hardship, they are destroyed by distraction. Their attention is constantly pulled in every direction. Notifications, entertainment, social media, endless opinions, endless noise. The modern world profits from your distraction, but your future depends on your focus. The Stoics understood that attention is power. Whatever controls your attention eventually controls your life. If distractions control your attention, they control your future. If purpose controls your attention, purpose controls your future. This is why many men feel stuck, not because they lack ability, but because their energy is scattered. Their focus is divided. Their minds are occupied by things that add no value. A focused man becomes powerful. An unfocused man becomes exhausted. There is an old story about a sculptor creating a masterpiece. A visitor watched him for weeks. Every day the sculptor chipped away pieces of stone, small pieces, tiny pieces, nothing dramatic, nothing exciting. Eventually the visitor asked, "When will the statue appear?" The sculptor smiled. "It has always been there. I'm simply removing what doesn't belong." That is exactly how personal growth works. You do not become powerful. by adding something new. You become powerful by removing what weakens you. Remove excuses, remove distractions, remove self-doubt, remove laziness, remove victimhood, remove fear of judgment. Underneath all of those things is the man you were meant to become. Modern society often misunderstands strength. Many think strength means domination, aggression, control, power over others. The Stoics disagreed. To them, strength meant mastery of oneself. A man who controls his anger is stronger than a man who intimidates others. A man who controls his desires is stronger than a man who chases every temptation. A man who remains calm during chaos is stronger than a man who panics. True strength is internal, because external strength can be taken away. Youth fades, money disappears, status changes, but character remains. That is why the Stoics invested their lives building character. They understood it was the only possession nobody could steal. Every man has hidden potential, but most potential remains dormant. Why? Because comfort rarely awakens greatness. Difficulty does, pressure does, responsibility does, adversity does. Think about the strongest version of yourself, the most disciplined version, the most resilient version, the most focused version. That version is not created during easy times. That version is created during difficult times, when nobody is watching, when life becomes hard, when excuses become available, when quitting seems reasonable. Those moments reveal character. Those moments build greatness. Throughout his teachings, Epictetus repeated one message again and again. No man is free if he is not master of himself. Read that carefully. No man is free if he is not master of himself. A man controlled by anger is not free. A man controlled by fear is not free. A man controlled by pleasure is not free. A man controlled by approval is not free. Freedom is not merely physical. Freedom is psychological. And the Stoics dedicated their lives to achieving that freedom because they understood a profound truth. The greatest prison is not made of walls. The greatest prison exists inside an undisciplined mind. Many men spend years trying to change their circumstances. New job, new city, new relationship, new opportunity. Yet they remain unhappy because they carry the same mindset everywhere they go. The Stoics knew that lasting change begins internally. A stronger mind creates a stronger life. A disciplined mind creates a disciplined future. A focused mind creates meaningful results. The external world often reflects the internal world. That is why self-mastery is the foundation of everything. Near the end of his life, Seneca left behind wisdom that remains relevant today. He understood that life is not measured by its length. It is measured by how it is used. Many people exist. Few truly live. Many drift through life. Few pursue purpose. Many consume. Few create. Many complain. Few improve. The Stoics wanted men to live deliberately, to choose purpose over comfort, growth over stagnation, action over excuses, because a meaningful life is built intentionally. It never happens by accident. Every man eventually arrives at a crossroads. One path leads toward comfort. The other leads toward growth. One path feels easier. The other feels harder. One path offers immediate pleasure. The other offers long-term fulfillment. And every day, whether consciously or unconsciously, men choose. The choices seem small. Wake up early or stay in bed. Work on your future or waste another evening. Face your fears or avoid them. Develop discipline or surrender to comfort. But small decisions compound. Days become months. Months become years. Years become a life. And eventually, your life becomes the sum of your daily choices. So, what is the Stoic solution nobody teaches? It is not suppressing emotions. It is not pretending to be invincible. It is not becoming cold. It is not becoming detached from humanity. The Stoic solution is simpler. Accept reality. Master your thoughts. Focus on what you control. Use adversity as training. Build character above all else. Live with purpose. And remember that every challenge is an opportunity to become stronger. That is the secret. The world teaches men to conquer everything around them. The Stoics taught men to conquer themselves. And self-mastery is the highest victory. If you are a man suffering in silence, hear this carefully. Your struggles do not define you. Your setbacks do not define you. Your failures do not define you. Your response defines you. Every great Stoic faced hardship. Every great Stoic faced fear. Every great Stoic faced uncertainty. But they refused to surrender their minds. And that is why their wisdom has survived for thousands of years, because the battle never changed. The battlefield simply moved. The battle is still within. And the solution remains the same. Stand up. Face reality. Carry your responsibilities. Strengthen your character. Master your mind. And become the man you were capable of being all along. Because hidden beneath the pain, hidden beneath the struggle, hidden beneath the silence, is a version of yourself the world has not yet seen. And that man is waiting for you to begin.